Commander Jack Reynolds stared at the blinking red alert on his holographic display, coffee forgotten in his hand. After 15 years of false alarms and space debris warnings at Lunar Base Alpha, he'd grown accustomed to disappointment. But this was different. The energy signatures were massive, unlike anything their sensors had ever detected. "Sir," Lieutenant Maria Santos called from her station, her voice tight with tension. "We're picking up over 300 objects approaching from the Kuiper Belt." They're massives, sir. Largest one is reading at roughly 12 kilometers in length. Jack set down his coffee, straightening his collar as he walked to the main observation window. The massive reinforced panels offered a stunning view of Earth hanging like a blue marble in the void, but his attention was fixed on the holographic overlay showing the approaching vessels. "Pattern analysis?" he asked, maintaining his calm despite the adrenaline surging through his system. "That's the strange part, sir," Maria replied, her fingers dancing across her console. "They're not in any recognizable formation. It's almost chaotic, like a herd of startled animals." The comparison sent a chill down Jack's spine. In all their simulations of first contact, hostile or peaceful, alien vessels always maintained strict formations. This was something else entirely. "Get me a direct line to SPAC Oman," he ordered, turning to face the command center's main screen. "And someone wake up Dr. Harrison in xenobiology. He'll want to see this." Before anyone could comply, every screen in the command center flickered. The harsh fluorescent lighting dimmed, replaced by a soft, pulsing bioluminescence that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Jack's hand instinctively moved to his sidearm. "Sir," Maria's voice cracked with disbelief, "we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on every frequency simultaneously, even ones we thought were secure." The main screen came to life with an image that made Jack's breath catch in his throat. The being displayed was vaguely humanoid, its translucent skin rippling with patterns of light that mimicked its apparent emotional state. Current pattern: distress. "People of Earth," the alien spoke, its voice somehow conveying both authority and desperation. "I am High Navigator Zara of the Narix Exodus Fleet. We seek sanctuary." The patterns across its skin darkened to a deep indigo. "They are hunting us. The Void Hunters. They follow, they consume, they leave nothing alive. We detected your world's unique electromagnetic signature. You use both biological and mechanical technology. You alone might understand. You alone might help." The command center erupted in controlled chaos as officers rushed to their stations, but Jack remained frozen, studying the alien's features. Years of training in detecting deception told him one thing: this was genuine terror. "High Navigator," he responded, his voice steady despite the gravity of the moment. "This is Commander Jack Reynolds of Earth's Lunar Defense Command. We're tracking your approach. Please maintain your current velocity and trajectory while we—" "Commander," Zara interrupted, the luminescence patterns becoming erratic. "We have children. Entire generational ships. Our engines are failing. We've traveled too far, too fast. And they're coming. The hunters never stop. We estimate their arrival within 3 of your months." The alien skin pulsed with a desperate rhythm. "Please, we have so much to share, to teach, but we cannot run anymore." Jack felt the weight of history on his shoulders. His next words could shape humanity's future. Standard protocol demanded quarantine, extensive negotiations, careful diplomatic. A new alert blared. One of the alien ships had just lost power, its graceful form now tumbling through space. The sensors showed life signs aboard, thousands of them, their vital signs failing. Jack made his decision. "Launch rescue vessels," he commanded. "All of them. Now." He turned to face his stunned crew. "And get me a direct line to the Security Council. We're about to have company for dinner." As the rescue ships streaked across the void, Jack watched the alien fleet draw closer, their organic ships pulsing with weakening bioluminescence. He knew that somewhere out there, In the dark between the stars, something mechanical and merciless was following their trail. Humanity's age of isolation was over. The question was, were they ready for what came next? Dr. Amanda Parker pressed her hand against the observation glass, watching the pulsing organic matter with a mixture of wonder and disbelief. The Narix vessel's hull wasn't just alive, it was thriving. Veins of bioluminescent fluid coursed through translucent tissues, carrying nutrients and information in patterns that defied conventional science. Beautiful, isn't it? Major Tom Harrison's voice broke through her concentration. He stood beside her in full hazmat gear, helmet tucked under his arm. Though I've got to admit, walking through those corridors feels like being swallowed alive. Amanda turned to face him, her eyes bright with excitement. Tom, their entire technological foundation is based on engineered biology. These ships aren't just transport. They're symbiotic organisms. The Narix don't pilot them. They communicate with them. Yeah, well, communication's been a bit of a challenge, Tom replied, running a hand through his graying hair. Half the refugee children started screaming when they saw our mechanical docking clamps. Had to disconnect them and let their ships, tendrils, I guess you'd call them, make the connection instead. A soft chime interrupted them as the decontamination chamber cycled. Through the airlock stepped a Narix elder, its skin shifting through shades of green and blue. Unlike the younger members of its species, this one showed no fear of the human facility's mechanical nature. Elder Vix, Amanda greeted, having learned their name during previous interactions. Thank you for allowing us to study your vessel's biology. The alien's skin rippled with what they'd learned was amusement. Gratitude is unnecessary, Dr. Parker. Your people risk much by harboring us. Knowledge exchange is the least we can offer. Their expression darkened, patterns shifting to deep purple. Though I fear even your remarkable hybrid technology may not be enough when the hunters arrive. Tom stepped forward, his military bearing evident. About that, we need to know everything about these hunters. Their capabilities, weaknesses, anything that might help us prepare. Vix's skin paled almost to transparency, showing the complex network of vessels beneath. They were once like you, a species that embraced both biological and mechanical advancement. But they chose to abandon their organic nature entirely. Now they seek to purge it from the galaxy, converting or destroying all life they encounter. A sudden alarm blared through the facility. Amanda rushed to the nearest console, her heart racing. On the screen, one of the refugee ships was experiencing what looked like a massive immune response. Elder, she called urgently. Ship 147 is showing signs of cellular breakdown. The biological matrix is rejecting something, but we can't determine. The children. Vix interrupted, their skin flashing with panic. That vessel carries our youngest. The stress of the journey, the fear. The ship is responding to their collective trauma. Tom was already moving. I'll get a medical team. No. Vix's voice carried unexpected authority. Your mechanical instruments will only accelerate the rejection. Dr. Parker, you understand our biology now. You must help me stabilize them. Amanda's mind raced through everything she'd learned about Narix biotechnology. The ship responds to emotional states. Tom, get me access to the station's harmonic resonators, if we can match the ship's native frequency. What followed was a desperate race against time. While Tom coordinated with the station's engineering team, Amanda and Vix worked to create a biological interface that could channel soothing vibrations directly into the ship's tissue. The sight of human technology working in concert with Narix biological knowledge drew a crowd of both species. Hours later, as the crisis passed, Amanda watched human and Narix children alike press their hands against the stabilized ship's hull, giggling as it pulsed with soft light in response to their touch. The fear was giving way to curiosity. Perhaps, Vix said softly, their skin showing hopeful gold patterns, this is why we were guided here. Not just for protection, but for combination. Your people don't fear the mixing of organic and mechanical. You embrace it. We call it adaptation. Amanda replied, thinking of the defense plans already being drawn up. And speaking of mixing, she pulled up the preliminary designs for a hybrid defense system on her tablet. I have some ideas I'd like to discuss about your biosensors and our early warning network. The elder's skin flickered with interest as Tom joined them, all three knowing that somewhere out there, the hunters were drawing closer. The race to combine their technologies had begun. Lieutenant Emily Tech Witch Blackwood had seen some strange things during her tenure at the hybrid integration facility, but watching a Narration engineer literally grow a navigation system from scratch took the cake. Her tablet recorded every second as Kren, their lead bioengineer, guided streams of luminescent cells into complex patterns with gentle movements of their six-fingered hands. The neural pathways align with stellar coordinates, Kren explained, their skin flickering with teaching patterns. The system lives, learns, adapts to new routes naturally. Fascinating, Emily muttered, already running calculations. But what happens if it encounters something completely unknown? Our mechanical systems can be reprogrammed on the fly, but a biological system. She stopped mid-sentence as emergency klaxons blared through the facility. Red warning lights bathed the laboratory in crimson. Medical emergency in Bay 7, the AI announced. Critical system failure in refugee vessel Starbound. Emily's blood ran cold. Bay 7 housed their first attempted hybrid integration. A Narration ship they'd equipped with human FTL sensors. She sprinted down the corridor, Kren flowing alongside her with surprising speed. They found chaos in the bay. The ship's biological components were rejecting the mechanical implants violently, its hull rippling with angry red patterns. Dr. Rodriguez, their lead medical officer, was already there, looking helpless as the ship's own immune system attacked the valuable sensors. It's like an infection, Rodriguez shouted over the ship's distressed keening. The organic material is treating our tech like an invasive organism. Emily's mind raced. 3 months of work was literally dissolving before their eyes. And worse, the ship itself, a living being, was suffering. She glanced at her tablet, then at Kren, whose skin had gone ash-gray with distress. Kren, she called, your navigation system. It learns, adapts. What if... She pulled up schematics of their nanobots. What if we could teach the ship's immune system that our tech isn't a threat? The Narrax's skin flickered with sudden understanding. Yes, like teaching an infant's immune system with controlled exposure. But we must hurry. What followed was the most intense 40 minutes of Emily's career. While Rodriguez kept the ship stable, she and Kren reprogrammed her experimental nanobots to mimic the chemical signatures of healthy Narration cells. It was crazy, dangerous, and probably violated half a dozen protocols. Releasing modified nanobots, Emily announced, her finger hovering over the activation key. Everyone clear the splash zone. The moment the nanobots were introduced, the ship's hull rippled violently. Emily held her breath. If she was wrong, they'd lose not just the hybrid system, but possibly the entire vessel. Seconds ticked by. The ship's distressed keening slowly changed pitch. Where the hull had been angry red, patches of curious purple began to appear. It's working, Kren whispered, their skin pulsing with cautious hope. The ship, it's not fighting anymore. It's learning. Emily watched in amazement as the hybrid system stabilized. The mechanical components were no longer being rejected. Instead, the ship's biological matrix was growing around them, incorporating them into its structure. Her tablet exploded with readings as new neural pathways formed, creating interfaces between organic and mechanical systems that nobody had thought possible. Holy shit, Rodriguez breathed, staring at his medical scanner. The ship isn't just accepting the technology, it's improving it. The biological components are optimizing our sensor configurations. Hours later, after extensive testing confirmed the integration's success, Emily sat in her office completing her report. The implications were staggering. If they could replicate this process, adapt it to different systems. Her tablet chimed with an incoming priority message. It was from Fleet Command, marked urgent. Void Hunter Scout Vessel DETCTED System IG. Estimated 2 montages until an AN fleet arrival. Emily's hands tightened on the tablet. 2 months to reproduce this miracle on a massive scale. 2 months to create a defense system unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. She opened a new project file and labeled it Operation Symbiosis. Below her office in Bay 7, the hybrid ship pulsed with newly harmonized energy, its merged systems sending data in patterns that were neither purely mechanical nor purely organic, but something gloriously in between. Something new. Something that might just save them all. Colonel James "Iron Jim" Martinez stood at the helm of the U.S. Chimera, humanity's first true hybrid warship, and watched his crew work in perfect sync with their Narix counterparts. The bridge itself was a testament to their merged technologies. Sleek holographic displays grew from living tissue, while standard military interfaces seamlessly integrated with pulsing organic matter. All systems nominal, reported Lieutenant Chen from her biomechanical navigation station. Both conventional and organic power systems operating at 97% efficiency. Jim nodded, but his attention was fixed on the massive construction efforts visible through the main viewport. The asteroid belt had become humanity's largest engineering project. A string of hybrid defense platforms stretching as far as the eye could see. Each platform combined Narix biosensors with human weapons systems, creating a defensive line unprecedented in galactic history. Colonel, his Narix second-in-command, Zex, called out, their skin rippling with concern patterns. We're detecting anomalous readings from the quantum core. Before Jim could respond, the ship shuddered. The living walls of the bridge flickered from their usual calm blue to a sickly green. Warning klaxons blared as the hybrid systems began to desynchronize. Status report. Jim barked, grabbing his console as the deck plating vibrated beneath his feet. The biological components are rejecting the quantum core integration, Chen reported, her fingers dancing across both mechanical keyboards and organic interfaces. It's like they've suddenly recognized it as foreign technology. Cascade failure imminent. Jim's mind raced. The Chimera wasn't just a ship, it was the prototype for their entire defense strategy. If the hybrid systems failed here, Zex, he turned to his second, can the biological systems operate independently? Yes, but at reduced capacity. We'd lose weapons, shields. Do it. Separate all biological systems from the quantum core. Chen, prepare for emergency shutdown of all mechanical systems on my mark. His crew stared at him in disbelief. Powering down in the middle of space was suicide. But Jim had learned something crucial about hybrid systems. Sometimes you had to let them reset, like rebooting a computer or letting a wound heal naturally. Sir, Chen protested, regulations state. To hell with regulations, Jim snapped. This ship is alive, Lieutenant. We need to treat it like one. Mark. The Chimera went dark. For several terrifying moments, they floated in space, illuminated only by the distant sun and the faint bioluminescence of the ship's organic components. Jim held his breath, counting seconds. Now, he ordered softly, bring mechanical systems online one at a time. Let the biological matrix examine each system individually, like introducing new foods to a picky eater. Slowly, carefully, they reactivated the Chimera's mechanical heart. This time, the organic systems reached out cautiously, testing each connection before fully integrating. The sickly green faded back to calm blue. The vibrations ceased. Integration stabilizing. Chen reported, relief evident in her voice. All systems returning to normal parameters. Jim released his white-knuckled grip on the console. Send this data to all construction teams in the asteroid belt. We can't afford similar failures in the defense platforms. Colonel, Zex interrupted, their skin suddenly pulsing with alarm patterns. Long-range biosensors detecting multiple quantum wakes. Ships dropping out of FTL at the system edge. Everyone on the bridge held their breath. Jim stepped forward, his expression grim. Classification: Zex's skin went nearly transparent with fear. Not void hunters. Different signatures. More refugees. At least 30 vessels, all showing signs of battle damage. Jim looked out at the partially completed defense line. They barely had enough resources to complete the current project, let alone protect more refugees. But he remembered the oath he'd taken, not just to Earth, but to all living beings seeking shelter. "Alert command," he ordered. "Tell them to begin refugee protocols. And get me a direct line to Lieutenant Blackwood's integration team. We need to speed up platform construction." He watched as the first of the new refugee ships limped into visual range, their organic hulls bearing savage mechanical wounds. The Void Hunters had struck again, driving more survivors to Earth's doorstep. "Well," Jim muttered, "no one said being humanity's shield would be easy." The Chimera's hybrid systems hummed in harmony around him, a reminder that impossible combinations could work if you were brave enough to try them. Captain Lisa Ghost Winters watched her stealth squadron's formation through the Nightshade's hybrid viewing system. The 12 ships, each a perfect fusion of human stealth technology and Narek's biocamouflage, moved like shadows through the asteroid belt. Their organic hulls absorbed light rather than reflecting it, while modified cloaking systems masked their quantum signatures. "Contact," her Narek's sensor officer, Kira, announced, their skin flickering with warning patterns. 3 Void Hunter scout vessels just dropped out of FTL. Range: 6 million kilometers and closing. Lisa's hands tightened on her controls. They'd drilled for this, but simulation was one thing. Reality was another. "All ships, maintain radio silence." She subvocalized through her neural link to the squadron's biomechanical comm system. "Switch to organic pulse communications only. Remember your training." Through the viewport, she watched as her squadron seemingly dissolved into the void, their hybrid camouflage systems adapting to match the background radiation of space. The Narek's tissue coating their hulls pulsed slowly, absorbing energy signatures that might give them away. The Hunter vessels were exactly as the refugees had described. Massive constructs of black metal that seemed to devour light. Their sensor arrays swept the asteroid belt methodically, searching for the biological signatures that had always betrayed their prey. Multiple refugee ships detected, Kira reported, their skin pale with tension. "Transport Convoy 7 is crossing the belt. They won't make it to the defense line in time." Lisa did the math. The transport convoy carried over 10,000 civilians. If they altered course now, they'd be spotted. If they maintained course, they'd intersect directly with the Hunter patrol. "Squadron, new orders," she transmitted. "Form up on my position. Prepare for biomechanical synchronization." Her pilots responded instantly, their ships flowing into formation around the Nightshade. What she was about to attempt had only worked in simulations, and even then, only one time in 5. "Ma'am," her human XO, Rodriguez, questioned, "are we attempting a mass shadow?" "That's affirm." Lisa activated the ship's hybrid synchronization protocols. "Kira, link our biological systems. Rodriguez, match our mechanical frequencies precisely. We're going to swallow that convoy signature." The next 10 minutes were the most intense of Lisa's career. As the refugee convoy approached, her squadron expanded their biomechanical camouflage fields to encompass the larger ships. The strain on their systems was enormous. She could feel the Nightshade's hull quivering with effort as it helped mask the massive energy signatures of the transport ships. A Hunter vessel passed less than 10,000 kilometers from their position, close enough that Lisa could see the cold blue glow of its sensor arrays through the viewport. One error, one misaligned frequency, and everything would be lost. "Biology saturation at 98%, Kira warned, their skin showing exhaustion patterns. "We can't maintain this for long, Captain." "Just a little more," Lisa whispered, watching as the last transport ship glided silently through their protective bubble. "Just a little." The Hunter vessels suddenly changed course, their black hulls orienting toward a different sector. They'd missed the convoy completely. All ships, hold position, Lisa ordered, even as her crew sagged with relief. Maintain camouflage until they're out of sensor range. It took another 30 minutes before they could safely drop the mass shadow effect. By then, the transport convoy was safely behind the defense line, and the hunter scouts were vanishing back into FTL. Damage report, Lisa called out, finally allowing herself to breathe normally. Minor strain to biological components, Rodriguez reported. Nothing some rest won't fix. But Captain, you need to see this. He brought up a replay of their sensor logs. The hunter vessels hadn't just missed them, they'd actively avoided their location, as if the complete absence of signals was itself suspicious. They're learning, Kira observed, their skin showing worry patterns. Next time, they'll know that too much nothing means something. Lisa nodded grimly. Send all data to command. They need to know our stealth advantage may be temporary. She looked out at her squadron, their hybrid ships still rippling with exhausted bioluminescence. And get me Lieutenant Blackwood at integration. I have an idea for our next upgrade. The wisdom of an old Earth saying rang in her mind. The hunter becomes the hunted. But first, they had to become better ghosts. Admiral Michael Old Wolf Thompson stood in the orbital command center, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic battle display. 3 massive Void Hunter vessels had just breached the outer defense line, their black hulls absorbing weapons fire like cosmic vampires. Status on the Symbiosis Protocol, he demanded, watching as conventional weapons bounced harmlessly off the hunter shields. Ready for deployment, sir, Commander Sarah Wells reported from the weapons station. Biological sheaths are stable around the warheads. But sir, we've only got 4. If this doesn't work, it'll work, Michael interrupted, his voice carrying the weight of certainty he didn't quite feel. Lieutenant Blackwood's team hasn't failed us yet. The hunter vessels pressed forward, their weapons cutting through defensive platforms like paper. The hybrid technology that had proven so effective in stealth operations seemed to barely slow their advance. Sir, Lieutenant Garcia called out. They're targeting the refugee sectors. Civilian casualties imminent in 3 minutes. Michael's jaw clenched. Millions of lives, human and alien, sheltered in those habitats. He'd sworn to protect them, and by God, he would. Launch the Symbiosis warheads, he ordered. Target their shield generators. Time on target detonation. 4 missiles streaked from their launch platforms, their hulls wrapped in living Nerix tissue. On the surface, they looked like ordinary nuclear weapons, but each carried a revolutionary payload. Warheads encased in engineered biological matter that could penetrate hunter shields by mimicking natural space debris. Hunters are not responding to the launch, Wells reported, tension evident in her voice. They're not registering the weapons at all. Michael allowed himself a grim smile. That's because they're looking for machines. They've forgotten what life looks like. The warheads struck simultaneously. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the biological sheaths did their job, creating microscopic gaps in the hunter shields. The nuclear payloads detonated an instant later. The explosion was unlike anything Michael had ever seen. The combination of nuclear force and biological material created a cascading reaction. Where cold fusion met living matter, space itself seemed to bloom. Waves of aurora-like energy rippled outward, their colors shifting between mechanical precision and organic chaos. Direct hits, Garcia shouted. All 3 vessels. Sir, their shields are completely down. The biological component is spreading through their systems like a virus. All batteries, open fire, Michael commanded. Concentrate everything we have on those ships. The defense platforms unleashed their full arsenal. This time, without their shields, the hunter vessels couldn't absorb the barrage. Their black hulls cracked, spewing a mixture of mechanical debris and corrupted biological matter into space. Enemy vessels breaking up, Wells reported, her voice thick with emotion. We did it, sir. We actually did it. Michael watched as the last hunter ship split apart, its core going critical in a final explosion that painted the sky with what would become known as Thompson's light, a perfect blend of mechanical and organic destruction. But there was no time to celebrate. "Damage report," he ordered. "We lost 37 defense platforms." Garcia responded. 14 damaged but repairable. Civilian casualties. He paused, checking his data. Minimal. The evacuation protocols worked. Michael nodded, but his eyes were fixed on the long-range sensors. These were just scouts. The main hunter fleet would come soon, and they'd learn from this defeat. They'd adapt. "Send all battle data to integration," he ordered, "and get me a secure line to the Council. Tell them we've proved it can be done. The hunters can bleed." Hours later, as repair crews worked to rebuild the defense line, Michael stood at the observation window of his office. Below him, Earth shone like a jewel, surrounded by the combined fleet of a dozen refugee species. They'd won their first real battle, but at a cost. They'd shown their hand. He touched the window, feeling its cold surface. "Come on then," he whispered to the darkness between the stars. "Come see what happens when you push life into a corner." Behind him, the battle display continued to show the aftermath of Thompson's light, a reminder that in the war between life and machine, humanity had chosen its side, and they'd made it count. General Rebecca Steele Rose Cooper stood before the assembled Refugee Council, her dress uniform stark against the living architecture of the chamber. Representatives from 17 different species filled the room, their recent arrival doubling Earth's already strained refugee population. The Krith Defense Corps surrendered to the hunters in the Carina sector. The Krith representative, a crystalline being named Zaxtor, explained. His metallic voice carried shame. "But some of us, we chose to run. To warn you." "Warn us of what?" Rebecca demanded, though the pit in her stomach told her she already knew. "The hunters are changing tactics." Zaxtor's crystal structure dimmed. "They're not just consuming civilizations anymore. They're adapting them, using their strengths. Our quantum targeting systems are now part of their arsenal." The chamber erupted in panic. Multiple species talking at once created a cacophony of biological and mechanical communication methods. Rebecca raised her hand for silence, a gesture that had become universal among their mixed communities. "How long?" she asked. 3 weeks. Maybe less. Zaxtor's structure pulsed with regret. "And there's more. We detected sabotage patterns in our fleet before we fled. They've developed infiltration units." Before Rebecca could respond, alarms blared throughout the chamber. Her neural link flashed urgent red as Lieutenant Commander Jackson's voice filled her mind. "General, we've detected anomalous energy signatures in Refugee Sector 7. Multiple hybrid systems are failing simultaneously." Rebecca was already moving. "Lock down all sectors. Full biological and mechanical scans on every ship in the fleet. Authorization Cooper Alpha 1. The next 12 hours were chaos. Teams of human and alien specialists swept through the refugee fleet, discovering and neutralizing 3 hunter infiltration units. The saboteurs had disguised themselves using stolen biological technology, but their purely mechanical cores gave them away to the new hybrid scanners. Standing in the quarantine chamber, Rebecca studied the deactivated infiltrator. Its surface mimicked living tissue perfectly, but beneath, pure machine. A message from the hunters. Anything organic could be replicated, corrupted, turned against itself. "General," her aide interrupted her thoughts, "the Refugee Council is reconvening. They're talking about leaving. They think they're putting Earth in danger by staying." Rebecca's jaw clenched. She'd seen this pattern before. Fear dividing potential allies, driving them apart when they needed unity most. Not this time. She marched back into the council chamber, now darkened by fear and doubt. The representatives fell silent as she took the podium. "Today's attack failed," she began, her voice carrying to every corner. "Not because our technology was superior. Not because our weapons were stronger. It failed because humans, Narix, Krith, and a dozen other species worked together. Every scanner that caught these infiltrators used technology from multiple worlds. She activated the chamber's holographic display, showing the combined fleet in orbit around Earth. Look at what we've built together. Every ship out there carries the legacy of a different world. Different approaches to the same challenge of survival. The Narix representative's skin flickered with hope patterns. The Krith's crystalline structure brightened slightly. The hunters want us divided, Rebecca continued. They understand machines, they can replicate biology, but there's one thing they've never mastered: cooperation. True symbiosis. She smiled grimly. So let's show them something new. What are you proposing? Zaxtor asked. Mixed species combat units. Not just human and Narix anymore. All of us. Every ship, every squad combines different species strengths. The hunters can adapt to one type of defense, but let's see them handle thousands of combinations. The chamber hummed with discussion. Then, one by one, the representatives stood. Agreement patterns rippled through biological components while mechanical parts signaled acceptance in their own ways. Hours later, Rebecca watched from her office as the first mixed species units began training. Human pilots flew Krith-engineered fighters enhanced with Narix biological sensors. Crystalline warriors learned to synchronize with organic ships. Her neural link chimed with a priority message. Hunter Mayan Fleet DTKT. Approach VC2RKLQL8ED. East-8ED Arrival. 72 HO yours. Rebecca straightened her uniform. They weren't ready. But together, they were stronger than they'd ever been alone. The real test was coming. Showtime, she whispered to the stars. Supreme Commander Ryan Shield Anderson stood on the bridge of the Gaia's Fist, watching as the largest hunter fleet ever recorded tore through space-time like a wound in reality. 5,000 ships, each one a monument to the death of organic life, bearing down on humanity's adopted home. All defense zones report ready, His XO, Captain Maria Chen, announced. Her neural interface pulsed with data from every hybrid command center in the system. The void mirror is charged and synchronized. Ryan nodded, his scared face reflected in the living crystal of his command console. Every species had contributed to this moment. The Narix's biological interfacing, the Krith's quantum mathematics, humanity's stubborn innovation, all merged into one final gambit. Enemy fleet advancing on projected vector. The Krith tactical officer, Vexnar, reported their crystalline form vibrating with tension. They're deploying in attack formation Alpha. No, shifting to Beta. They're cycling through formations randomly. They remember Thompson's light, Ryan mused. They won't give us another easy target. He opened a channel to all forces. All units, execute Operation Starcross. May whatever gods you believe in watch over us. The combined fleet moved like a living organism. Mixed species crews worked in perfect harmony, their ships forming patterns that defied conventional tactical analysis. Biological and mechanical systems sang together, creating a symphony of war that the galaxy had never witnessed. The hunters struck first. Their weapons fire was devastating, enhanced by stolen technologies from 100 conquered worlds. But where their beams hit, they found shields that adapted, armor that learned, countermeasures that evolved with each impact. Void mirror at full charge, Maria reported, waiting for them to commit. Ryan watched as the hunter fleet pressed forward, their formation tightening for maximum firepower. Just as the simulations predicted, they were machines after all. They followed patterns, even in chaos. Now, Ryan commanded, activate the mirror. Throughout the asteroid belt, thousands of hybrid platforms activated simultaneously. Each one contained a piece of the most ambitious weapon ever created, a system that turned the hunters' own energy signatures against them. Biological components read and replicated their quantum frequencies while mechanical systems amplified and reflected them back. Space itself seemed to shudder. Where hunter beams struck, they were caught in recursive loops, their energy multiplied and twisted back upon itself. Ships that tried to absorb the attack found their shields overwhelmed by their own power signatures. Multiple hunter vessels experiencing cascade failures. Vexnar reported, their crystalline form bright with excitement. Their adaptive protocols they're trying to counter, but each adaptation just gives the mirror more patterns to work with. The battle became a dance of light and shadow. Hunter ships exploded in chains as their own weapons turned traitor. Those that tried to flee found their engines reflected back on themselves, trapped in temporal knots of their own making. They're launching infiltrators, Maria warned. Thousands of them. Ryan allowed himself a grim smile. Execute Starcross Phase 2. The infiltrator units rushed forward, their hybrid disguises perfect and utterly useless. As they approached the defense line, specialized platforms activated. The space between stars filled with a web of quantum frequencies, each one tuned to a different species' biological signature. The infiltrators, lacking any true organic pattern to match, stood out like beacons. Clean sweep, Maria reported. Infiltrator units neutralize. Hunter fleet is, sir, they're breaking apart. Ryan watched as the mighty armada began to dissolve. Ships weren't just exploding. They were being unmade, their stolen technologies turning against them, their mechanical perfection becoming their undoing. When it was over, when the last hunter vessel had been reduced to scattered atoms, Ryan opened a channel to Earth Command. Operation Starcross complete, he reported. The hunter fleet is destroyed. All units stand down to condition yellow. The bridge erupted in celebration. Species that would never have met if not for this war embraced, their joy transcending biological and mechanical boundaries. Hours later, as repair crews worked to salvage what they could from the battlefield, Ryan stood at his viewport. Earth shone behind him, no longer just humanity's home, but a beacon for all species seeking a balance between the organic and mechanical. Welcome home, he whispered to the countless refugee ships emerging from hiding. All of you. The war was over. The age of separation had ended, and in its place, something new had been born. A civilization that proved life itself was the greatest technology of all.